Hey everyone, Shintai here, and with me I have my good friend Ultimate Floyd. How are you doing, man?
Not bad, man. Thanks for having me on and actually asking me to join you for the podcast that we're starting.
Well, it's not so much that I'm asking you to join me as much as I'm asking you to collaborate because this is going to be our thing now. This is our baby, you know?
Right. And I guess we should actually start off by saying, even though this is the first episode, we did do a recording before this, and then basically shit happened, and it was basically
To play lightly.
we couldn't actually upload it. So this is kind of like a second run through. So it's going to be a bit weird, I guess, in some parts, but
Yeah, to kind of quickly run down what happened. So, to put it simply, the recording software that I was using was recording the wrong thing. And it was kind of a sign of things to come because normally I have everything ready and set to go before I have, I have anything to do with recording with any other person. I usually have things like, everything is down pat. But this is something that had to do with my settings on my PC, which has never been an issue before. And guess what? My computer fucking died not that long afterwards. So it was probably a result of that. It was a sign that there was something wrong with my computer at that point. So, yeah. But now I have a new computer, and it's way stronger, it's way better. It's also kind of an explanation of why I haven't uploaded anything recently, because I haven't had a computer, and when I finally got this one, been trying to get it up to speed. And, yeah, we did record that first episode, and I thought it turned out pretty good, so I'm sad that it was lost in the fucking ether. But we're gonna come back strong with this one. That was patient zero. This is the real first episode now.
yeah, there was some good discussions on that one. I think the GameCube discussion we did was pretty great, but this is it kind of worked well as like a test run for us, so that we can actually make the first episode like actually really good.
Yeah. You could think of it as gaining some experience points before we leveled up.
Yes. Exactly.
That's the nerdiest way I could have put it. First of all, I guess we should go over what we went through in the previous one, which was the explanation for the visual that we have with Virgil and Gwyn. So, obviously, in case you couldn't tell, Virgil is supposed to represent me, and Gwyn is supposed to represent Ultimate Floyd here. So, real quick, if you want to explain why you chose Gwyn to represent you, that'd be cool.
Okay, so yeah, and this is pretty much the only part of the podcast that we're kind of reiterating what we said on the one that we recorded previously. But
Yeah.
for me, my explanation is not quite as good or as in depth as yours. But like Dark Souls is my favorite game of all time, so I knew I wanted to go with a character from that game. And the podcast is Final Bosses, so I said, you know what? Let's go with the final boss of Dark Souls. It's one of my favorite characters in that game. I think he's pretty badass. He's got a cool design to him as well. So I decided, you know what, that would be a good image, I think.
And he's pretty badass, so, I mean, I don't blame you. But the reason I picked Virgil personally was because, well, he's the final boss of Devil May Cry 3. And Devil May Cry 3 is one of my personal favorite games of all time. And I also feel that Virgil kind of represents me in a couple of respects. Obviously, I'm not going around slaying demons with a katana, although that would be pretty cool. I do really appreciate Virgil's kind of stoic nature and his precision, but he also has a bit of like a recklessness to him. And I think obviously not to the degree of his character, but I feel like I have some of those traits as well. So I felt like Virgil in that respect is a good representation of me. Albeit really exaggerated, but whatever. It's my fucking show. I'll put what I want.
Yeah, I think when it's like when you're trying to choose video game characters, it's like, especially characters from like action games like that, or like even some role playing games, it's a little hard to find characters that are completely like you, but at the same time are like kind of badass characters that would be good for like image art.
Let's all be real. If there were characters in video games that were exactly like us, probably wouldn't be very good video games.
No, probably not.
It's like, oh, what's this character's special ability? He can analyze concrete. What do? You're a construction worker. Oh, okay. Great game! But, getting off that, let's talk about some games that we've been playing recently. Because I need to get this off my chest, man. I just beat the behemoth that was Yakuza 5. Holy shit. 190 hours. Fuck me.
Like, I can't even remember the last time a game took me that long to finish.
Actually, I was thinking about it, and I'm not 100% sure, but I think I put more time into this game than all of the previous games in the series combined.
Probably, because like a lot of them took like maybe around 20 hours. Like none of them until like 5 actually were all like super long or anything.
Yeah. No, yeah, 5 was just, oh my god, so fucking long. I've been contemplating whether or not I should write a review of it or not, or I need to do something, because I invested so much of my life into it at this point.
Yeah, you've invested so much time into it that you kind of have to do something. I don't know if like a review, but something with it for sure.
Ostensibly speaking, though, I have this really shitty habit of putting the controller down and doing something else, just fucking off, doing something else, and I would have to say that a good number of hours is probably due to that. So, someone messages me online, like, oh, okay, respond to them, or something came up, someone called me, whatever. I do have this bad habit of putting the controller down and doing other things. But let's be generous and say that it was, I don't even think it was this much, but let's say it was like 30 hours worth of me putting the controller down. It's still 160 hours of me actively playing this game.
Yeah, that's still pretty insane.
And the worst part is, like, I wouldn't say it's like the weakest game in the series or anything like that. I think that dubious honor goes to Yakuza 3. But it's not my favorite by a long shot. Like, I'd say it's like either in the middle or one of the weaker games in the series.
Yeah, I need to go back to it. I got like maybe 10 hours into it, and just, I don't know, like the story just wasn't doing it for me. Like I don't know, I just couldn't get into it like I could some of the other games in the series.
Dude, the story's a fucking mess.
Is it?
It's a mess.
See, now I definitely don't want to go back to it.
So here's the thing with the story. Kazuma's part, it's mostly like, it gets really good toward when you finish Kazuma's like story. Like the ending like ends with a bang. Like it's really good. But then we go to Taiga Saijima's, and the start of his is terrible because he goes back to jail, and it's like, is this character's gimmick now? Like, one of the things I really liked in Yakuza 4 was going through Taiga Saijima's jailbreak, because it was really fresh and interesting, because you never did that before in the series. Like, technically you did in the first Yakuza, like, there was that little part at the very beginning where Kazuma's in jail, but that was like one fight at the very beginning of the game, and that's it. So to see it expanded upon in Yakuza 4 was really cool. But it was like the developers thought, like, oh wow, a lot of people like that. Let's put it back in 5. And it's like, no! What was cool was that it was special in 4. And it's worse here, because it's a lot longer. It takes so much longer. I don't remember exactly how long it was in Yakuza 4, but it felt like, in Yakuza 5, it took forever for him to get out of jail. And when you finally do, Taiga's city is the worst city in the entire game because it's really restrictive. There's, similar to Yakuza 4, there's police officers that, you can't get in their line of sight, and you can't just cross the streets because there's cars in the way. Oh, it's so frustrating.
That sounds annoying. That sounds like the kind of thing that would really annoy me.
Thankfully, the police officers in this one are not as bad as how it was in Yakuza 4, because in Yakuza 4, I think you would, get a game over or something, or you'd have to, reload a checkpoint or something. I remember it being more annoying in 4. And in 5, all it is, if there's a police officer nearby, Taiga will just be like, oh, I can't go over there. And that's it. So it's
okay.
It's not as bad, but it's still, restrictive and annoying. So, you have to, go around to, the other side of the street in order to get to where you want to go to. And, yeah, there's just some dumb shit in the story. Okay, the stories in Yakuza 4 was kind of dumb as well, but, it was enjoyably dumb.
Yeah, it was entertaining.
But with Yakuza 5, it's just dumb.
Okay.
There's one part in Taiga Saijima's story where they need to kidnap some guy, and there's security all over the place. So the way they do it is, there's a manhole that's conveniently right in front of where this guy is sitting out in a park, and then they open the manhole and grab him, and nobody notices. And this is when there's a bunch of people around. And they all just happen to look up at, I think a plane flying by or some stupid shit like that. And I'm like, are you serious? You can't... Really? This is how they're going to get this guy? It was bad. It was really bad. Contrived would be an understatement.
Interesting, because Yakuza 0, the story in that game is actually quite good. Actually, it's probably one of the stronger storylines in the series. To hear that the fifth one's pretty messy, it's pretty little disappointing.
Yeah. And actually, there was one guy named Tatsuo Shimada, and he was really likable. He's an ex-baseball star, and his story is actually really interesting too. So the problem is, it's so tangentially connected to the main story. It literally, his whole entire story arc could have been cut from the game and not much would have been lost. And that really kind of, it makes me sad because the story itself actually was pretty decent, but by virtue of it being part of Yakuza 5, it's held back because it's arbitrarily tying itself to the main story. And I feel like if this was its own game, if it was a spin-off on the Vita or something, they could have fleshed out the story more. They could have expanded on his baseball minigame, and it could have been a really great spin-off. But as it is here in Yakuza 5, it feels kind of, it's wasted potential. So yeah, Yakuza 5, not my favorite.
But is it someone that's finished 4? Would you still recommend they play it? Because I know there's the 6th one, right? Which I assume is after the 5th one.
It is, but I hear that with the 6th game, see, there's a reason why Yakuza 1 got remade, and that's because the events of Yakuza 0 and 1 are more tied to what happens in 6 rather than 5.
Okay. See, okay, I didn't know that.
That's what I hear. I was listening to these guys called Yakuza Fan. They're a YouTube channel, and it's literally in their name. They're Yakuza fans, so they imported the game and played it. So that's based on what they said. So you
Okay.
know, if it turns out to be wrong, don't kill me.
I would think that they'd be right.
Yeah, yeah. They went as far as like apparently there's an app, like an Android app on your phone that you can get that allows you to take pictures of Japanese text and it can get translated on the fly. And
Whoa,
they used that in order to play the game.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
I'd almost be tempted to do that for some games.
Yeah, I was thinking about them like, PS3 version of Tales of Vesperia, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Or like Tales of Rebirth. I always wanted to
Oh,
play.
yes. Actually, we can't talk too much Tales yet because
Right. Yeah.
that'll be later.
Yeah. Later.
Aside from Yakuza 5 that I finished, I've also been playing Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Okay, so yeah, this should be a good discussion because I'm actually
Mm-hmm.
playing this as well at the same time. So this will kind of take up one of the slots for the games I've been playing. But yeah, I think there's going to be a good discussion here with this game.
Yeah. We can discuss it together. So I got to come out and say that while I do like this game and I do think it's a really good game, it's gotten a lot of praise that I don't think it entirely deserves.
Yeah, so this game is like, man, the amount of people I've seen that call this game like their favorite game they've ever played is kind of insane. And then of course
Yeah.
you have like all the tens from like mainstream critics. I don't know, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I really honestly feel like if this game wasn't called Zelda, let's just assume that everything about this game was the same, except it wasn't Link and it wasn't Zelda, and any references to like Zelda were replaced with like something original. People would not be giving this game nines and tens.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things with this game, a lot of people are probably taken aback by it because it kind of throws away a lot of the conventions of the series. It doesn't feel like a Zelda game in a lot of ways, and it's doing all these new things. And the way it does open world is so different from like the other Zelda games that I think people are just kind of blown away by that just for the expectations of the series. And not taking it as its own game.
I totally agree.
Because basically, like, I'm also not. I don't think this game is like this masterpiece that people are claiming it is, but it is actually really growing on me. I have a lot of issues with it. We'll definitely talk about those. I think we have like kind of similar feelings on it, but it's one of those games that I can recognize all these flaws and frustrations with it, but I can't put this game down, man. Like, it is addictive.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think it just makes exploration really fun. And I think that's the main thing about it that is really addicting. It hooks me and, like, has me coming back. Because every time I play it, I'm just like, one more shrine. You know, or like, I gotta find one more thing. And then one more thing turns into 5.
Yeah, like there's like a main quest, but anytime like it will get you to go to like one of the main dungeons of the games, I always get distracted by all this other shit. Like I might see this shrine way off the distance. Oh, I gotta get that. And on the way to the shrine, I might see like some forest that I've never seen before, or some village I've never seen before, or some interesting like rock formation, or just some part of the environment. I'm just like, ooh, what's that? Ooh, what's that? It's just it's like that constant feeling. The exploration and like the overworld in this game is pretty terrific, I gotta say.
And I want to say that, like, because a lot of people have been comparing it to Ubisoft games, and I think that's a fair comparison in certain respects, but not entirely, because I feel like with a lot of Ubisoft's games, it's literally just like, look at the map, there's an icon, I gotta go to the icon to do whatever, something. While with Zelda, it's more like, there's an interesting thing over here. I'm not sure entirely what's going to be there. Maybe it's going to be a shrine. Maybe it's going to be a quest. Maybe it's going to be something for the Korok seeds, whatever. But there's an interesting thing there, and I want to go check it out, rather than, oh, here's my checklist of shit to do.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big differences. One of the, I guess, noticeable things are like the towers. That is the thing that reminds me of Ubisoft the most.
Yeah.
Uncover the map. It's a little tedious too, some of the towers.
I already got all the towers, and after I was done getting them all, I was like, good riddance to bad rubbish.
Yeah, I don't. That's one part of the game I do not enjoy. There was one tower in particular that, like, the way to find out how to climb it was really odd. It took me forever because it was so random. It's like the one with all, like, the purple goop all over it.
Oh, yeah, I remember. You had to, like, find just the right path up.
Yeah, it was weird. Like, 'cause there's all these, like, different areas, and, like, yeah, it was like this very specific path you had to take, and it was, I don't know, it was kind of annoying.
Is there any way to get rid of that black goop? Because I haven't found it yet.
I haven't found a way to. There might be. There always, like, this game is interesting in the way that there's always some way. There's multiple ways to, like, figure out different things. Like, there's always never usually just one way to do things in this game, which I definitely admire.
Actually, that's something I really appreciate, because there have been times where I have beaten shrines by doing it in ways that I don't think was the intended method.
Yes, yeah.
Like, there was one time where, like, there were these electrical nodes, I guess I'm going to call them that. And they all had to link together in order to unlock this this gear. Like, it was, this gear was closed behind some bars, and I don't think I wasn't able to, like, really figure out exactly what the game wanted me to do. So I said, fuck it. I grabbed all of my metal weapons and just forced them to all connect with the electricity, and that opened the gate anyways.
That's awesome. Yeah, I haven't actually found that one before. That's cool.
Yeah. Because I couldn't quite get what the game wanted me to do. And I was just like, well, fuck you. Just throw all my weapons on the ground, had the electricity go in. I'm like, oh, all right, got my weapons back, solved the shrine.
Interesting. You know, one thing about this game that is kind of surprising me so far is the story I'm actually kind of liking.
Yeah, me too.
I think it's interesting, like, the characterization of Zelda in this game. And then just the fact that it's basically like Link is kind of like somewhat like 100 years in the future, and how things have changed compared to 100 years in the past. Like, and kind of finding all your memories and kind of piecing together the story. I thought it was actually kind of interesting. And there's actually some parts of this game that are actually pretty sad and surprisingly dark, which I wasn't really expecting.
Yeah, when you're collecting the memories especially, you find out just how likable and charming Zelda was. And it's like, oh shit. I mean, I heard she was kind of likable in Skyward Sword, but I never played Skyward Sword. But, like, I never really cared that much about Zelda herself in any of the other Zelda games. This is the only one where I was like, Zelda's pretty likable. I mean, I just wish I saw more of her.
Yeah, I know. It's because a lot of, like, the story is through those memories and then the kind of main quest dungeons that you tackle. I definitely do wish there was, like, a little more of it for sure.
Yeah, I've actually gotten most of the memories. I'm only missing one of them, which I hear is inside of Ganon's castle. So I may just leave that for much later.
Right. Yeah. Once I hit that point where I'm, like, ready to tackle Ganon's castle, I'm just gonna be like, nope, try to do everything possible. Like the shrines, like, it's like the OCD in me just wants me to complete all the shrines, but those gyro controls ones can fuck right off.
Oh, they suck.
Like, that is probably one of the worst parts of the game, and there's more of them than I would expect, and I've hated every single one of them.
Dude, they're fucking garbage.
Like the gyro controls are simply not accurate enough for what they expect out of you. It's ridiculous. Like
The worst one for me, and I posted a picture of it on Twitter. It was one where it wanted me to have these 3 balls fit into 3 different holes at the same time.
yeah, I just did that one not too long ago.
Fuck that one.
Yeah.
I was so close to just like giving up. It was so bad, but eventually I was able to do it, and oh man, it just doesn't feel play tested. Like
I know, it's baffling. Like I really don't understand like Nintendo's obsession with gyro controls. It's just ugh.
Yeah,
But
Nintendo always has to force gimmicks down our throats.
yeah, so basically with this game, what are some of the major issues that you're having with it?
I'm not a huge fan of the combat.
Yeah, honestly, the combat is kind of regressive in some ways.
Yes. I mean, compare Link's moveset in this game to his moveset in Twilight Princess. It's night and day.
Yep. And Skyward Sword, I know it gets a lot of shit, but honestly, I'll take the combat in that. Like, I think there was a lot of like the moveset was interesting and varied, and the motion controls, they worked well enough to made the combat kind of unique. And this, it feels like regressive and too simplistic.
I will give them credit for this though. They did something in this one that wasn't really a factor in other Zelda games, and that is actually giving a use to your items during combat. I mean, you could use items in combat in the other games, but not really like you could in this one. Like, you can grab some metal thing with the magnesis and, like, smack a moblin in the face with it. Or you can use the physics to your advantage. Like, you can chop down a tree and have it fall down on enemies and stuff. So, I will give them credit for that. Like, there's more environmental, like, situational depth. But there isn't much depth in regards to the actual core swordplay mechanics.
Yeah, I think I can agree with that. What do you think about the durability system in this game?
I think here's the problem with it. It gets easier as the game goes on, and that's the wrong... Like, that's the inherent problem with durability in general, where, like, the beginning of the game should be easier and the game gets harder as it goes on. But here, like, the durability starts off as a huge problem, but then as you later on in the game, you know, you get more weapons, you can hold more weapons, the weapons have more durability to them, it becomes less of an issue. So I think it works against itself.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. It's not as annoying as I would have expected. I do think the weapons break a little too quickly.
Yeah.
I do think they should take a little longer to break, but it's not the disaster I guess I was expecting. I was really expecting to hate it, but it definitely still has problems, I would say.
I mean, it kind of reminds me of how people were complaining about the weapon durability in Dark Souls 2. These fucking weapons make the weapons in Dark Souls 2 look like Mastercraft works. Like,
yeah. One thing with this game, it's such an exploration-focused game, and it's often quite rewarding. One of the problems I'm having with it is the fact that in the early game, this game really gets easier the more you play it. But in the early game, exploration can be really punishing. If you don't have enough stamina, or you don't have enough hearts, or your weapons aren't strong enough, there's a lot of shit that you just can't do.
yes.
You'll find so many enemies and shrines that are like way ahead of what you have at the moment, and it can be a little frustrating. Like so many times in the early game, I'd find these parts of the environment that I just couldn't scale or I couldn't get through, and it was pretty frustrating.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I understand why that's the case at the same time, because if they didn't do it like that, then the game would be too easy, and you could just, blow through the game much more quickly. But I think that's also kind of an inherent problem with making games too open like this, where there's no real structure to it, and as a result, the balance is like out of whack.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I actually, from what I'm seeing, like it's honestly almost recommended to do the main quests as early as possible because I just finished the Zora area and there's an ability you get from completing it. I don't really want to spoil, but it's so overpowered. It makes things so much easier. You probably might know what it is if you've gotten it.
You mean the Zora armor?
No, the once you beat the Divine Beast. You get like a key item. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. Now I know what you're talking about.
Like I cannot believe how much easier the game is now with that. Like,
yeah, and it recharges.
yes, and it recharges.
I also did the Gerudo one, and that one gives you a really powerful ability as well.
Yeah. See, now I'm like, since I get this ability, I'm just like, well, now I kind of don't want to explore all these optional areas. I kind of just want to do the main quest, so it will help me do these optional areas.
Yeah, and the divine beasts are not that difficult because I think they were specifically constructed in a way that you could tackle them earlier on in the game.
Yeah, that I do like. I like the fact that you can basically do any of these divine beasts in order. One thing with this game, like as good as the exploration in the overworld is, I gotta say, as a huge fan of this series, the dungeons are a little disappointing. Like the mini shrines are like this cool way to reward exploration. I really like that the spirit orbs get you like increased health or increased stamina. I think that's a really good reward.
I dig it too.
Yeah, but they all look the same. Like all like the I think the assets are like the exact same in each shrine. They start to get a little samey after a while.
It couldn't kill them to like change it up.
Yeah, like, and then the actual main dungeons they feel like there's some cool gimmicks to them, I gotta say, but at the same time, they just remind me of like a bunch of the mini shrines kind of put together. They just don't have like the kind of, like, there are definitely some clever puzzles, but they just don't have the feel of like a classic Zelda dungeon to me. I wish they were a little more in-depth and involved. They're really short too, and yeah, I don't know, they're a little disappointing.
I get that, but at the same time, I kind of like them for one reason, and it's because they remind me more of Shadow of the Colossus than they do like a typical Zelda dungeon.
Yeah, see, you're like a huge fan of Shadow of the Colossus, right? It's one of those games that I couldn't get into, but I'd like to play it again at some point.
Blasphemy!
Yeah, I know.
You need to give that game another chance.
I will, because I liked The Last Guardian, which I know a lot of people that even love Shadow of the Colossus that hated Last Guardian, but I
would actually say if you loved Shadow of the Colossus, you probably didn't like that game. That's what I've noticed.
Yeah, yeah, you know, I let you bring that up. Yeah, it does almost seem that way, doesn't it?
Because it seems to me like the Last Guardian is more akin to Ico.
Right, yeah, for sure.
Which I think Ico doesn't get enough love. I think that's a really good game that more people should give a chance.
I've never been a fan of it. It's not really my type of game, though.
Yeah, fair enough. But going back to Zelda, I feel like the Divine Beasts are kind of like fighting the Colossus in a way. I mean, not strictly, because the Colossus weren't like you were exploring a dungeon or anything like that. But I mean more so in the sense like, well, first of all, their designs are similar. Like you're fighting these like mechanical monstrosities. But also like they're not meant to be this huge endeavor, but they're meant to be like these, they're these self-contained puzzles in a way. And that's kind of how the Colossi felt like in Shadow of the Colossus. Rather than all of them feeling like these epic battles, some of them felt like they were these puzzles. And that's similarly how I feel about the Divine Beasts. They're kind of like elaborate puzzles.
Right. I wonder if the developers of this were inspired by Shadow of the Colossus in some ways.
I think they were. In fact, I dare anyone to just like turn off the map, just explore Hyrule a bit on horseback, and tell me you don't get some like Shadow of the Colossus vibes.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. One thing about the horses that really bugs me in this game is the fact that like there's like a radius of calling your horse. If you like, you can be like really far away from like the nearest like the stable where your horse is kind of sort of near, and your horse like won't come to you. Like it's only in very specific areas, which is really annoying.
Yeah, but I do appreciate that you can just leave your horse wherever, and if you just go to another stable, they'll like they'll like fetch your horse for you. So
yeah, I do like that at least. Yeah,
because I remember when I first got a horse, I was super paranoid about it. I'm like, oh, do I have to board it back at the stable every time? Oh shit.
Oh, that would be awful.
Yeah, so I did appreciate that at least.
Like the only other thing with this game that I'm not a fan of are the side quests, which like I've almost every open world game I swear has garbage side quests. Like it's getting really annoying. But yeah, they're just like fetch quests for the most part. There's a couple good ones here and there, but
the majority of them is just like grab an item, kill something. It's like this, same shit.
Yeah, like it's I don't know, they're pretty bad, but you can easily ignore them.
Yeah, they're not mandatory at all.
No, yeah, for sure.
So what else have you been playing?
So basically, because I really only play one game at once. Like I find it very hard to play multiple games at once. But I'll talk about two games I played and finished recently. The first one is Nier Automata, and yeah, don't worry, I'm not going to spoil anything with this game. I'm just going to talk briefly about it. It is one of those games. Like I do have a review of it on the channel that people can check out, but it's so like I can't really talk about the story a whole lot in this game. There's just so many cool moments in this game. I don't know if have you played it yet? Or are you waiting?
Well, kind of funny. My sister, it's basic. The first game was basically her favorite game of all time, so she pretty much just like grabbed my copy, and she plans on playing it after she's done with Yakuza 0. So
nice.
I'm gonna wait for her to finish it before I jump into it.
Right. Yeah. So this game is my favorite game of the year so far. Like I think this game's absolutely incredible. I think it's better than the original Nier in almost every single way. The only thing I probably like better in the original Nier is the characters, but that's about it. Like, the platinum gameplay in combination with Yoko Taro's typical just craziness, it's awesome. This game is so good. I like the story stuff. A lot of the story stuff I really can't really talk about all that much, but the way it's integrated with the actual gameplay is just really fascinating. And a lot of the endings are really fascinating as well. The actual, like, all the themes are really interesting. I've heard some people complain about the gameplay, saying it's just it's not as in depth as a lot of Platinum's other games or a lot of like hack and slash games, which I think is a little unfair. Like the whole appeal of this game is the fact that it's like Yoko Taro's storytelling mixed with like what you would find in a Platinum game, and it's an action RPG. And the combat, I think it works perfectly fine for this game. And a lot of like the leveling up mechanics I think are really well done. Like the customization is great. And it's definitely a combat more focused on dodging projectiles. It's got like the shoot 'em up elements of the original Nier, and the way that is implemented into the combat is really fantastic. Like, yeah, there's not like a million different combos you can pull off, and the weapons generally, in terms of feel, they're a little different, but they're not going to give you like entirely different move sets or anything like that. But I think the combat works well for what it is. It's flashy, the animations are great, the way dodging it works is excellent, and you can get different new abilities, but based on like the chips that you can equip. So yeah, sure, the combat's not like amazing or anything, but I think it works really well, and in combination with everything else in the game, like as a whole package, this game is just excellent. The open world is pretty interesting as well. The side quests are a little bland, but some of them are really well done. And yeah, overall the game's just fantastic. I really loved it. It just got better and better. If you're playing it, definitely go through endings A through E. Those are the main endings. It's typical Yoko Taro. If you just do one ending, you're not getting the full story. But it's not tedious doing the other endings. You don't have to worry about doing a bunch of recycled content or anything like that. The way they the way the different endings play out is really interesting. Like the differences in playthroughs. A phenomenal game. I highly recommend it. Even if you haven't played the original Nier, it might be hard to go back to after playing this one, but it works as kind of a standalone game. Like it's not going to be like you're going to miss out on some moments. There's a lot of connections between the two games that are really really cool to see, but it works well as a standalone game as well, I think.
Excellent. I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I agree that like because I did beat the demo, so I do have some experience with the gameplay. I agree that comparing it to other Platinum games, I think it was pretty I think going into this game expecting a Platinum Games game is the wrong mindset. Like if you're a big fan of Platinum Games, I mean you'll probably still enjoy the game, I imagine. I mean it's not like the combat's bad, it's good combat, but if you're expecting that level, like if you're expecting like Bayonetta levels of combat here, you know, that's not what this game is about. So
yeah, like they both have different strengths, right? Like Bayonetta, as good as that combat is, and the combat is amazing, the spectacle of that game is amazing. I mean, the story is hot garbage.
Yeah.
There's no actual like the actual level design is kind of poor as well, and it's like the combat is definitely the highlight of that game. That's most of what it is. But
although Bayonetta herself is a pretty cool character.
Yeah, for sure. But like the actual story is just like, man,
it's stupid. It's so bad.
Like I almost argue that a lot of Platinum games, like the stories are usually not amazing. There's some good ones, but like I think out of all the games Platinum has done, like this one's easily got the best actual story to it.
And I found it interesting that you said that the characters were better in the first Nier, and that's kind of a common sentiment that I've heard, where the actual story of Automata is better than the original game, but that the characters in the original Nier were stronger.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are probably saying that. It's something I agree with. I can't really exactly say why, because it'd be delving into spoilers, but yeah.
But would you still say that the characters in Automata are good?
Yes. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, they're definitely not bad characters.
Yeah. To be fair, the characters in the first Nier were really well written and just really likable and strongly characterized. So topping them would be a tall feat. So as long as these characters aren't like bad, then that's fine.
No, yeah, for sure. They're definitely not.
All right. Let's move on to the news. Oh, man. So, how do you feel about Mass Effect?
Okay, so Mass Effect, it's not one of my favorite trilogies. Now, the first game I fucking love. Honestly, I really like it. Like, I loved it when it came out. I played through it like 5 times. Like, I thought the writing was actually pretty good in that game. It had like this interesting world to it. It had almost kind of a self-contained storyline. It could have just ended there, but they of course decided not to. And I think the trilogy was probably always planned. But I kind of always felt like that first game had like a nice ending to it. And I liked how much of an RPG it was. I loved the RPG mechanics. Like, yeah, the combat was trash. It probably is even worse now.
It is. Trust me, it is.
Everything else about that game I loved, and then the second game was kind of a disappointment to me when it came out. I still enjoyed it. Like the combat was definitely a hell of a lot better, but the writing took a huge step back. Especially like, well, just in general, the writing took a huge step back. The RPG elements were really stripped down. I don't know. It didn't do it for me like the first one did. So
I've only played Mass Effect 2.
It's interesting. That's very interesting. I wonder, like, because like a lot of like the excitement for that game would be because you played the first one and experienced all the events of that game, and of course, they made all this hubbub about transferring all of your choices between the games, and
Right.
obviously we all know how that turned out. But
So real quick, I want to give my thoughts and feelings. So I do like asterisks Mass Effect 2, but oh boy, does it have a lot of problems.
it does, yeah.
One thing that bothered me about the game a lot was how propped up Shepard is. Like, they make such a big deal about what a big dick G he is, and I just kind of assumed, like, okay, maybe that's because of what he did in the first game. And I was disappointed even more when I went back and tried to play the first game, and one of the very first things that the game does is like, Shepard's such a fucking badass, and I'm like, what is so fucking special about this character? Like, for real. Like, if you look at his skill list, he's basically a carbon copy of, like, any other character in the game. He doesn't have any moves or any abilities that are unique to him. Or her, rather. Like, whatever, you know, femme shep, male shep, whatever. Like, so it just really bothers me. It's like, there's nothing actually special about Shepard, and yet this is something that I hate about how certain writers handle characters, where they're all about telling you how amazing something is, but never doing anything to demonstrate how amazing it is, but forcing you as the audience to accept it in some way by not actually demonstrating it in any meaningful way, but just by telling you over and over again, and hopefully you just believe it at some point. And I hate that.
I actually forgot. It's been a while since I played the first Mass Effect. I did forget about that, but yeah, I do think I remember a lot of the characters keep mentioning mentioning that.
Okay, so aside from that, though, the main story itself in Mass Effect 2, what main story? Nothing fucking happened.
Yeah, it's mostly like side character stories, like the loyalty missions. Like
which I will say were good. I liked those.
Yeah, for the most part they were good. But yeah, the actual main story, there's like almost nothing there, and I really hated how they brought back Shepard. Like,
that was dumb.
It's so stupid. Like, it's so dumb. And the ending is terrible too, with the fucking Terminator robot.
Yep. Like, it made no sense at all whatsoever. Like, I don't want to spoil anything too much, I guess. I mean, this is how old is this game? Like, 5 years? 5 years old?
Everyone's played Mass Effect 2 too, as well.
So, like, the ending of the game is basically, like, the Reapers were creating a human Reaper. Why? And the way that they were doing it is by getting a bunch of people and turning them into paste. How would that make a human Reaper? Like, it makes no fucking sense. How would mashing up a bunch of people and turning them into goop create a big robot? Why would you need a big robot? Oh my god, it makes no sense at all. And I heard that it was so bad that it's not even mentioned in Mass Effect 3.
Yeah, I don't think it is. Yeah, Mass Effect 3 is...
I haven't played it. I haven't played 3, so...
It's not worth playing.
Like, a lot of people tell me that the game is great right up until the ending.
I don't know. The writing is pretty poor in it, from what I remember. Like, it's even worse than the second game. Like, and the characters in the third game, the new characters they had were terrible. They're so, like, generic and just like, ugh. I don't know. Mass Effect 3 just did not really do it for me all that much.
So the series was basically a downward slope for you.
Yeah, like, I really liked that first game, but I don't know. It just kind of went downhill after. But I guess this new one, the more interesting thing for me is the fact that it's almost kind of like I forget if it's like in the future or in the past compared to the first three games, but it's like a totally different character, different universe or something.
No, it's a different galaxy.
Yeah.
The Andromeda system.
Yeah. which is kind of interesting. But yeah, I guess the main topic here is the shit show of this game.
Well, real quick, I want to say, I know I've only played the second game, so this is just based on what I've seen. But I want to say that the writing and the gameplay, if we were to like put them on a scale, not a scale, if we were to put them on a graph, the quality of the gameplay and the writing are like an X, where the writing for the first game is at its highest, and then the gameplay is at the bottom. But the writing kept going down, the gameplay kept going up. So I would say that Mass Effect 2 is probably where the X happens, where it crosses, and then it splinters off after that, where Mass Effect 3 and presumably Andromeda is where it just like fucking just goes completely to shit.
Have you seen like some of the conversations between characters in this game?
In Andromeda?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a few, and it's pretty laughable.
Like, my God, it's so bad. It's so bad. It's so cringeworthy. Like, every line of dialogue.
Like, I saw one where, like, I guess this girl was talking to the writer, and I guess she asked her out or something, or wanted to date her. And she's like, oh, no, I mean, you're cute, but, I mean, it wouldn't work. And the accent, I'm just not digging it. And she's like, well, I'm just going to go over here. And then there's an alien right there, and he's like, kill me now. And I'm like, thank you. That's exactly how I feel.
It's like, because it's the writing in combination with the horrible animations and just the plastic, like, doll eye characters. It's just awful.
It's the uncanny valley times 100.
Like, honestly, I watched like comparison videos. Mass Effect 3, the characters and animations are better. Like, they just are. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know what happened. Now, obviously there's a little controversy here because people are getting really angry about this, and even like, I think there was like some female development member of the game that didn't even do the animations. She had no responsibility for that, and people just started like sending her all this hateful garbage, which that's not cool.
That.
Yeah, like that's not
that's
cool.
That's fucked up. Leave her alone.
Yeah, and it's like, and I think a lot of like different developers have kind of given their thoughts on it, like especially like with animations just being really tough with our role playing games, especially with the games of like this scope. But yeah, it's like visually the game is not a looker, and it definitely seems to have some major issues.
Yeah, I mean, the game just looks so fucking bad. Like, and something a friend of mine told me that really elucidated what's wrong with this game, and it's not actually made by BioWare. Like, it's made by a new subsidiary of BioWare.
Yeah, BioWare Montreal.
Uh-huh. And apparently, a lot of... This is what he told me, so, take that for what you will. But he said that apparently a lot of the developers are, like, Mass Effect fanboys. So he says that the game is basically fan fiction.
It almost feels like that in a way. The disappointing thing for me, like, and granted, I do need to play it. I'm going to play it when it's like dirt cheap. I feel like sci-fi role-playing games are so rare. You just don't see them, and to finally get one, and just to have it have really poor writing and stripped down RPG mechanics, from what I've heard, is just, I don't know, it's a little disappointing to me.
That reminds me of another sci-fi RPG that came out not that long ago.
Yeah, good old Star Ocean 5.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's sad. I would really love just a really excellent sci-fi RPG.
Me too. I mean, sci-fi doesn't get enough love in RPGs. Usually, whenever we see sci-fi in RPGs, it's like some ancient civilization thousands of years ago, were big dick G's and they died for some reason. And that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, Nier Automata is sort of a sci-fi RPG.
Well, I mean, you're playing as an android, so...
Yeah, it's got elements of it, for sure.
but I guess that's more post-apocalyptic than anything else.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's kind of a mix of the two, actually.
Yeah. Well, you did get Zero Horizon Dawn, so that's kind of both as well.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Sci-fi thing.
Yeah, that game's kind of like RPG light. Like it's very, like the role-playing elements are definitely on the, like they're not super involved or anything.
Also, can I just like point out like this has been an insane year for games. Like there's been a ton of like high-profile, really good fucking games that have come out recently.
Yeah, this seems to be the first actual disappointment for a lot of people.
Yeah, no kidding.
The combat looks good, and like the exploration, I like what they've shown of the exploration, going to different planets. The Mako is back, and it seems to be a lot better than it was in the first game.
Oh, it is? I didn't know that.
Yeah, you can like travel around on these planets in the vehicle and like kind of get out and explore. Hopefully that stuff's pretty well done. I've heard it's pretty decent. But then I've also heard like it's got Dragon Age Inquisition style side quests, like a lot of fetch quests and MMO style quest design. Yeah, I don't know. I'd like to play it to like I'm kind of trashing it like a lot here, but which is probably a little unfair considering I haven't really played it. But it doesn't.
I'd say it is fair because we're basing our judgments on what we've seen so far. We're not making any definitive statements about the game's quality in and of itself, just merely of what we've observed up to this point.
Right. Yeah.
Anyways, moving on from that, you wanted to talk about this. Radiant Historia is getting a 3DS port, and that's a game that I bought. But I was like, dude, it's super late into the DS game. Like, I never even had an original DS. The first DS I ever owned was the new 3DS. So I actually did buy a copy of Radiant Historia, but like, I did not get around to playing it. And now I kind of feel like an idiot buying that because now there's this newer, better version.
Yeah, so when they first showed like the art for this before like the announcement, I guess everyone thought it was going to be a new Radiant Historia game. Some people were probably disappointed that it's kind of just like an enhanced remake. But it is a game I have played. I did end up finishing it, and this is probably going to get me some controversy or some hate here. I didn't care for it, honestly.
Oh, snap!
Yeah, it's one of those highly praised games I just did not care for. It's definitely got some unique qualities to it. I really do like the timeline angle it's got going on with the story, and you're jumping between different timelines. But like the execution was a little sloppy for me. Like from this story standpoint, it was really cool, and I really did think the story in that game and the characters were pretty great. But you had to do a lot of tedious bullshit going through like the timeline jumping, and there's a lot of cryptic shit, like a lot of stuff that's like really hard to figure out what you had to do, and there's a lot of repeating content. Like it felt very budget, that game. There's a lot of reused assets, and you're going through like the same enemies, the same dungeons over and over again. It kind of sucks. The actual dungeon design I thought was really irritating. Like the puzzles were really annoying. And the combat, I hated the combat in that game. It was just a slog. Like it was like this grid-based tactical combat, but it was so slow. All the enemies had ridiculous amounts of HP, and the battles would just go on forever. And it just eventually, like halfway through the game, I was so sick of combat. I was just like, ugh. And it's just, I don't know. The game, I just did not enjoy it, despite some elements of it me appreciating. So maybe this enhanced remake will fix some of the things I didn't like. I haven't looked too much into this to see what I don't even think they've really said exactly what they're updating. But I do have to question like what they can do to actually make this really enhance, other than like visuals. The soundtrack was excellent in this game, though. Not a whole lot of songs to it. But the soundtrack was good. I think Yoko Shinomura did the soundtrack of it.
Okay. Wow. I never played it, so I ain't got no fucking opinion.
Yeah,
but,
I'll get hate for that. I'll get hate for it. A lot of people like absolutely love this game.
Yeah, I was gonna say a lot of people really dig this game. A lot of people consider it like one of the best RPGs on the DS. Which I mean, the DS is known for having some really strong RPGs on it. So, well,
Yeah.
I guess I'll just wait for the 3DS remake to come around and let's see what it has to offer.
Yeah, I mean, most people seem to love it, so I don't think you'll dislike it. For me, it was mainly the combat. Like, I hated the combat. Like, it's one of my least favorite turn-based battle systems. Like, it was just a total slog for me. I just did not like it at all.
I'll tell you what, though. Something that always bugged me about this game, and it was mostly before its release, was that it tricked me into thinking it was a sequel to Radiata Stories, and they're not related.
No, yeah, nothing to do with that game.
Man, fuck you for that. I was so looking forward to a sequel to that game, because that game is so good and underrated.
Yeah, I still need to play that. It does look really good. I've always had an interest in it.
It's a good game. I mean, my biggest beef with it is probably just the simplistic combat. It's not even like terrible combat or anything. It's just kind of there. But literally everything else about that game is great. Like, the music is great. It's one of the most gorgeous looking PS2 games. The story is pretty interesting. Lots of likable, charming characters. Like, it's just really good. I just wish the combat was better. Like, you know, just more could have been done with the combat. It could have been more in depth. One thing I will say about the combat that's interesting is that you basically customize your own combos. Like, as you play through the game, you level up, you learn new moves, and depending on what kind of weapon you're holding, it allows you to, like, slot in a certain number of attacks, and you can do, like, a right slash, a left slash, or a slash that, goes up and down, or a stab, or things like that. So there is some customization to the combat. There is some depth there, but nothing crazy. But no, it's still a really enjoyable game overall.
So when are we getting the enhanced remake of that game?
Never. Trice is like, I don't even know what's up with Trice nowadays. I thought they were done. I thought they were liquidated, and they kind of sort of came back for Star Ocean 5, much to my chagrin.
Yeah, you have to wonder what they'll do next after that utter disappointment.
I just remembered. I just remembered. They're releasing an HD version of Star Ocean 3.
Really? I hadn't heard about that.
Yep. I just remembered. Yep. How do you feel about that?
I wouldn't play it again. It's just an HD version, right? They're not fixing anything?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Nah, even if they fixed, like, the combat, like, updated the combat, like, that story and the characters, I don't know.
Oh, man, you're not a fan of Pepita?
No. Although, honestly, you know what? Star Ocean 4 has worse characters, though.
I can't fight you on that. Star Ocean 4's characters are trash. Star Ocean 4's characters are probably some of the worst characters I have ever seen in any RPG.
Okay.
Yeah. Fuck that game, man. I mean, okay, maybe not fuck it, because it was a fun game, but man, fuck those characters.
Yeah, they are pretty bad.
Even the names are bad. A Maverick that lives on the edge.
Edge Maverick. It's just like, oh my god. Like, what were they thinking? I don't.
Well, in their defense, I think with English names like that, I think it sounds cooler in Japanese. Like, I don't fucking understand Japanese, so if I hear a name like Rakyo Kyukin or some shit like that, I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. And then some Japanese guy might be like, why is this guy's name shit on my head? Or I don't know.
That's
you
true.
know? So, I mean, I saw an anime where the main character's name is Brandon Heat.
Really?
Yeah! And it's an amazing show, but like, the characters have like these dumb names like Ballad Bird Lee, Bob Poundmax, like these terrible names.
I kind of like Ballad Bird Lee. That's pretty good.
Let's see. There was also Bear Walkin'. That one was actually that's a good name.
Those are funny names.
Yeah, but it's actually like a really serious show. So
I didn't know that.
yeah, no, like it's like it has to deal with like the mafia and shit. Like it gets really fucking dark. It's a great, amazing show, but like especially if you watch it in Japanese, they don't say the names in Japanese. The Japanese actors say the names in English. So you have characters say Brandon.
Ballad Bird Lee.
Yeah. And like it kind of does take away some of the tension.
I can't get over that name now. I love that name.
Well, I mean, I think you'd like it though. I think it's up your alley.
Wait, did you say? I don't think you said the name of it.
It's called Gungrave.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. You talked.
I mentioned it to you before.
I didn't know that. I wouldn't have expected that to be the one with Ballad Bird Lee.
Actually, Ballad Bird Lee's character in the English dub is voiced by Stephen J. Blum, who is in fucking everything.
Yeah, I definitely heard his name before.
Yeah, he's been in everything. You know the little robot from Toonami?
Yeah.
That's him.
Oh, really?
He does the voice.
Interesting.
Yeah, dude's everywhere. But speaking of Adult Swim and Toonami, Samurai Jack is back with season 5. Now, you said you told me that you hadn't watched this show.
Yeah, obviously I've heard of it, but I never watched it when it came out. When did season 4 air? Was this like a long time ago?
Ooh, like 2004, I want to say.
Oh, whoa.
No, yeah, like it's a pretty old show. Like, here's the thing: this is what makes season 5 special, because when they initially released, okay, I'm looking at it now. Yeah, the first season was 2001, and it ended in 2004. So what makes season 5 special is that seasons 1 through 4 were made for Cartoon Network specifically. So it was a kid show.
Yeah, I do remember that being a kid show.
Season 5, they realized that their audience has grown up. So they have made season 5 with that in mind. And I've already seen the 2 episodes that are out as of this recording. And while the show still retains the same essence of the original 4 seasons, I didn't watch all 4 seasons. Like I caught a few episodes here and there as a kid when I saw it, but like I still have pretty strong memories of when I saw it. But like season 5 looks almost exactly the same as it did before, but like more polished, like cleaner, like it just looks tighter. Like when I first started watching it, I almost thought like I was watching one of the older seasons, and I thought like for a second there, I'm like, am I watching the right episode? Like it looks so similar. But what they did though is they kind of made it edgier, but not in like, because I usually hate that word because like it usually has a negative connotation. But
it can. But here I just mean like it things are just a little bit darker, but
they don't take it over the edge.
It's subtle.
Yeah, like at one point, Jack gets stabbed in the gut with a knife, and that would never happen in the previous seasons. But like, yeah, at one point, he's fighting off some assassins. I'm not going to reveal exactly what happened because it was a really, really intense episode. But like, towards the end of the episode, he does get like stabbed right in the gut, and you see him bleeding. So obviously, that'd be too graphic to show, on Cartoon Network. So they are definitely taking advantage of the fact that this is, I guess rated R. I mean, it's a TV show, so I guess not specifically
Adult
R.
Swim's kind of like almost in between PG-13 and R.
Yeah, so it's something like that. But I'm really impressed so far with season 5. I think the show is a real great. I guess it's a comeback, but at the same time, it feels like the show never left. And
did season 4 end off with a cliffhanger?
The show technically never ended.
They canceled it, maybe?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
And season 5 is intended to be like the ending. Like this was made to like wrap it up.
Okay, so it's just going to be one season and they're going to be done. Nice.
Yes.
Okay.
And to anybody who's wondering, like, oh, do I need to watch all 4 seasons or anything like that? Like, nah. Like, all you need to know is the basic premise of the show. Samurai Jack is locked in this fight with Aku, and he needs to get back to the past. And that's it. I mean, that's all you really need to know. And I think what's really interesting is the kind of the relationship between Aku and Jack have become so intertwined at this point, especially up to this point, that they've kind of developed like this really weird sense of codependence with each other, despite the fact that they're nemesis. So like, Samurai Jack himself is like kind of going insane. In like these episodes, like he's so haunted by the ghosts of his past, and he's like seeing things that aren't real. He's like actually in the first episode, he's in the middle of a fight with this guy named Scaramouche, and great name, right? And at one point, while he's fighting Scaramouche, he starts hallucinating, and Scaramouche is looking at him, and he's like, "That is one loco samurai."
That was funny.
Yeah, it was pretty good. And then he had to like throw a boulder at him to like wake him up. But and alternatively, while like Samurai Jack is like hallucinating because he's been fighting Aku all these years and he's still dealing with his bullshit, Aku is also like stressed out about Samurai Jack. He has like, because Aku is like this like not quite omnipotent, but he's like this really powerful like creature of darkness or whatever. And so he creates a clone of himself to talk to himself, and his clone is a therapist. So he's like, yeah, he's having a therapy session with himself, and he's consoling himself over the fact that he still hasn't killed Samurai Jack.
I don't know if something like that would have been in the original seasons. That sounds very. It doesn't sound like something that would be in a
kids show. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say like I don't know. Maybe you might enjoy it. It is an animated show, and I know you're not super into that, so I don't know. But I'd say that at least give the first episode a shot. You might dig it.
Yeah, I'll definitely give it a shot. One thing, like Adult Swim, Cartoon Network isn't in Canada. You pretty much have to torrent their shows, which is really annoying. Like Rick and Morty is like one of my favorite shows ever, and it's like I
Rick and Morty's so good.
I have no way of actually watching it legally. It's so annoying.
Rick and Morty's the best.
Yeah, I can't, like season 3. I can't wait. Like,
I bought seasons 1 and 2 on Blu-ray because I loved it so much. It was so good.
Yeah, it's one of those shows that's like it's so great, it's so hilarious, but it's also just actually pretty damn good sci-fi. Like a lot of the sci-fi concepts they come up with are pretty interesting.
I watched that show with my dad, and to this day, we still crack up at that one episode where they're playing like in the arcade. Do you remember? I think that was in season 2.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And at one point, Morty comes across this gaseous life form, and he's like, come on, Rick, we gotta help him out." And he's like, "God damn it, Morty, we're gonna help out this telepathic fart." That line just had me fucking dying.
Yeah, it's a pretty great show. If anyone hasn't seen Rick and Morty, you gotta watch it.
Do it. Get swifty and do it. All right. We got a discussion topic that I think will be really interesting because we're both fans of the Tales series. And, I mean, I don't know where the series is going now, but fuck it. We're going to play a little bit of Armchair CEO. And basically what that means is we're going to pretend that we own Bandai Namco, and we're going to say, fuck it, we're going to do what we want with the Tales of franchise. So, Ultimate Floyd, what would you do with the Tales of franchise if you could? If you could just, like, be CEO and be like, I'm going to do this.
Okay, so, first off, the important thing. New engine built from the ground up. Like, I am so sick of, like, the same engine being used for, like, the last... What, it's been since the same engine since,
Four games.
Xillia or something?
Xillia 1, Xillia 2, Zestiria, Berseria. It's all the same art style. It's all the same graphics engine. It's all the same assets.
Yeah, like the character models are still pretty decent, but like the environments are so bland and like the textures are quite poor. They're always like these big open areas with like trees and random shit just copy pasted in there, and it's just the worlds never feel like actual worlds. Like they just feel like these kind of, I don't know, it doesn't feel right to me. It's missing that classic like world map from like the Tales games. Like a perfect example is something like Ni no Kuni. Like that game looks incredible and the world map looks amazing, and that felt like this real world that was really fascinating to explore. Like I want that out of the Tales games again. Which the last time I felt like that was with like Vesperia, which is honestly probably still the best looking Tales game in my opinion.
Yeah,
like the art style, like the cell shaded art style they used for that game was absolutely beautiful. So that's definitely like the number one thing, and honestly, it's probably something they're going to be doing. At least I hope for the next one.
I do have to say this at least. I mean, with Zestiria, the environments were a huge step up compared to Xillia. But the dungeons were terrible.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, they're actually a little better in Berseria, but not that much better. Basically, as far as like the combat goes, that's an interesting question. What would I do with the combat? I mean, a lot of people really love Graces F's combat. I think bringing that style of combat back would be nice. I mean, it was kind of in Zestiria, but not really. And then basically improving it, although honestly, how could you improve upon Graces F combat? I have no idea. But
yeah, it was... I know some people that don't like it, and honestly, to those people, I don't get you, because that's honestly my favorite action RPG combat system. Full stop.
I mean, they're going in a good direction with Berseria as far as story and characters go. I think the move to more like a cast of like anti-heroes with like a more darker storyline is actually kind of interesting. I don't know if like two times in a row going for that kind of story, but I mean, it's something the Tales series usually doesn't do. So you know what? Maybe I would like to see that kind of thing again. But obviously, a new cast of characters. I don't think I'd want like another Berseria game. And then I don't know. I think trying to basically improve upon like the side content in the game. like try to create like meaningful side quests. I think would be really something I would really like to see. Uh, I wonder if what would you think of like an open world Tales game, almost like what they've done with Zelda. I mean, they've kind of had like giant worlds before, but I mean, they're still kind of like linear games in a way. Like kind of like a really open-ended Tales game would be kind of weird.
Here's what I want to see. I want to see another world that's structured the way Dragon Quest VIII was.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I did really like the way that the world was structured in that game.
I can't think of another RPG like that did it like that game, and I think that game hit it right, the nail right on the fucking head. It did an amazing job. That world was beautiful. It felt great to explore. It felt really natural to go from point A to point B in that game. And you could go off the beaten path and you could find secrets. Like, I just thought that the way that they crafted that world was excellent.
Yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite things about that game from what I played of it. But
what were you going to say?
I was going to ask you, where do you think? And
I'm thinking, let's go back to the past. I want to bring back some older Tales games that we never got. If I'm CEO of Bandai Namco, I want to put Tales of Rebirth on Steam. That's what I want.
That would be really nice. That, and then, well, Tales of the Rebirth, out of all the ones we haven't got, that's the one I want the most, actually, for sure.
Of the ones, yeah, that's the one I want the most. I would also say to take the PS3 version of Vesperia and put that on Steam and, maybe a PS4 port.
I'm pretty sure that will never happen, unfortunately.
No, this is all wishful thinking. This is all like, what if? Like, if we were the CEO and if we could do this. But,
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen it, but I think somebody, sent a Twitter message to Namco Bandai Namco. And was like, I think they were like saying on Twitter, like, which Tales game do you want to see brought back or something? And then the one guy's like, PS3 port of Vesperia. And then they responded back to him being like, not that one.
I think it was a more general, like, what games you want to see.
Yeah.
Not specifically Tales.
Yeah. That was it. I laughed at that. I was like, yeah, that's not ever going to happen.
Yeah, that really bummed me out.
It does suck because it's like a lot of people don't have a 360. It's like the only way to play it.
And the PS3 version was better. They added more content. And not just a little bit more content, like, an extra art here or there. Like, you could play as Flynn.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, like, it's my favorite Tales game, so I would like to play it again, preferably that version.
Yeah, I mean, technically there is a fan translation, but you would need to jailbreak your PS3 in order to play it.
No thanks.
Mm-hmm. That sucks, but what can you do? But yeah, I would also, I would bring over the PS2 remake of Tales of Destiny, the real Tales of Destiny 2, because the Tales of Destiny that was released on the PS1 was actually Tales of Eternia.
Yeah.
I would find some way to release the DS version of Tales of Hearts because it's, from what I've seen, much better than the Vita remake.
I've heard that too, which I find incredibly interesting.
And you know what? The Vita remake has a terrible translation.
Yeah, I remember you showed me that article showing like examples why, and I was like reading through that. I was like laughing. I was like, "Oh man, I'd forgotten how bad the localized." Or well, not forgotten, but kind of like noticing, like, "Oh wow, I guess it really was bad."
Yeah, like it seemed like the original script was it was more like hearkening back to more old school RPGs, which makes sense when you think about it, because the whole point of Tales of Hearts was like it was bringing together like the Destiny and Symphonia teams, and it was supposed to be like, you know, let's make a game that feels like the old Tales of games. And the way that it was like localized, it definitely didn't come across that way.
Right. You know what? I think they need to bring back Tales of the Tempest.
No, I think Japan can keep that one.
Yeah, I've looked at it. Like I've watched like a part of a playthrough. I was like, wow, this looks really bad.
That's because it wasn't made by the Tales team. It was made by Dimps.
Yeah. I think that's the only one. Is that the only Tales game that was not made by Tales Studio?
Tales Legendia was made by a different team. And the PSP ones, most of them were made by a different team as well.
Right, yeah. Oh, I just thought so. I can't believe I didn't think of this. Like, this is so obvious. Motoi Sakuraba, get rid of him.
Yes!
No, get rid of him.
Get the guy who did Legendia's soundtrack, Goshina.
Yep, get him, someone else.
Like, he's a great composer, but at this point, he's just going on autopilot.
Yeah, it's like the soundtracks in these games. Honestly, like, I don't think I've loved a single soundtrack in this series. The older ones, like the 2D ones, had pretty good soundtracks, but I don't know.
I thought Vesperia had a pretty solid soundtrack.
Yeah, out of all like the Sakuraba ones, I think that one's probably my favorite.
Yeah, I actually thought Zillia had some pretty good tracks too. But
I don't remember. The problem with these soundtracks, I never remember them. Like, there's like all the songs just like none of them stand out. They're just all, I don't know, it's really forgettable.
The thing is, though, he also composed Dark Souls' soundtrack, which is amazing.
Yeah, and then apparently Valkyrie Profile, I haven't played that game. I really need to. Apparently the soundtrack in that game is incredible. Like, it's probably one of his best ones I've heard.
He also did the soundtrack for Star Ocean, and the Star Ocean games also have amazing soundtracks.
Yeah, they've had good soundtracks.
So the problem is that the Tales team kind of forces him to just do similar sounding music.
Yeah. It's unfortunate.
But for whatever reason, they didn't tell Goshina shit, and he just like did whatever he wanted and made masterpieces. Like, the tracks that Goshina did for Tales of Zestiria specifically were fucking amazing, and completely overshadowed everything Motoi Sakuraba did.
They did, yeah, I remember that.
And Tales of Legendia to this day has the best soundtrack in the entire series.
Yeah, that's like no question, like hands down.
Like, to anyone who hasn't listened to Legendia's soundtrack, go type in the song. I think it's called Prayers That Turn Into Power. Just listen to that. That song is fucking amazing. I think that wraps up our wish list for what we would do with the Tales series. Yeah, or do you have anything else to add?
I think that's about it.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything you said.
It will be interesting to see what they do next.
We're going to come to the final part of the podcast. This is something that I'm going to dub, and I think the Evangelion fans in the audience will get a kick out of this. I'm dubbing this the Ultimate Floyd Instrumentality Project.
What?
So, okay, yeah. That's...
I don't know. I don't know what that is.
It's just a reference to Evangelion. It's no point in explaining it. You'd have to watch the show.
Yeah, I've heard of the show, but
basically what this is I'm going to try and turn Ultimate Floyd not necessarily into an anime fan, but I want to at least try and get him into some anime and hopefully, you know, gain some appreciation for the medium.
Yeah, he was mentioning this to me as a possible topic for the show, and I thought it was a good idea because, yeah, Anime, it's one of those things I've really tried. I need to try more. There's definitely, I feel like there definitely is going to be some that I enjoy. I find with anime, it's pretty hard for me to stick with something. I don't know, compared to like TV shows, I don't know what it is. It's hard to stick with them. Even ones that I think I do enjoy, like the only anime I've actually been able to get through entirely was Berserk. That's it.
Yeah.
Which it was really good. Uh, Kaiji was another one I really did like, but for some reason I didn't come back to it.
Oh, dude, Kaiji is so fucking good.
Yeah, that show is like quite different. But then every other thing I've tried, I've couldn't get into, and then there's a lot of things I've seen that I absolutely fucking hated. I think out of all the anime I've seen, the one I hated the most was Gantz, I think it was called, which apparently is pretty popular, and I thought it was like the most like I thought it was complete garbage.
Yeah, that's kind of a controversial one. I haven't personally seen it, but I know some
Like
friends who saw it and they didn't like it.
like it's gratuitous just to be gratuitous. It's like it's like ugh. It's a really obnoxious too. Like I could not stand it.
Based on what I've seen, it doesn't look like my kind of show at all. I tried to get you to watch Fate Zero, and I was kind of disappointed. You didn't latch onto it as much as I would have liked, but then you revealed to me that you're not really into fantasy, and I was like, what the fuck? This dude loves RPGs.
Yeah, this is a weird thing with me. I like fantasy in RPGs, but when it comes to movies and TV shows, it just doesn't do anything. Game of Thrones, I like a lot, but it's not for the fantasy elements. I like it for the political intrigue and the world that they've got, and then the more realistic elements to it, the characters. It's like the actual fantasy elements. I'm not crazy about that show, but it's not as like much of a focus as something like Lord of the Rings, for instance. So I'm able to get into Game of Thrones, whereas Lord of the Rings, I can't stand.
Okay. I don't know. That sounds kind of weird to me, to be honest.
I know, it's bizarre, right? It doesn't make any sense, but it's I don't know, it's just the way I am for some reason.
Hey, I mean, it's whatever, man. It's you be you. So with that in mind, I'm gonna try and avoid recommending you any fantasy anime. And this is going to be the first recommendation in the Instrumentality Project. It is an anime film. It's a short film called Magnetic Rose.
Okay, I've not heard of this.
You wouldn't have. Most anime fans wouldn't have heard of this. It's probably the most. It's probably the most underrated masterpiece I've ever seen.
Really?
Like it's just one of those things that like is so good, and no one has heard of it. Absolutely no one. I'll reveal something to you about it that I think will pique your interest, because you have seen Perfect Blue, right?
Yes, I have. I have seen that. I liked that.
This is written by this guy that directed and wrote Perfect Blue.
Oh, and people have not heard of this?
Unfortunately, because he didn't also direct Magnetic Rose, he only wrote it, so it's not typically credited as like one of his works. Yeah, this guy, Satoshi Kon, is probably my favorite anime director. Like, he is fucking amazing. But Magnetic Rose is only like 40 minutes long, 50 minutes long. Like, so I'm throwing you a real softball here. Like, it doesn't take very long to sit through.
Yeah, no time commitment. Not a huge time commitment.
And it's a sci-fi.
Sci-fi, nice. Yeah, I like sci-fi quite a bit.
Here's the thing. I don't want to spoil anything about it. So I'll give you kind of like the basic premise. And it's basically years in the future, and there's a couple of guys that are in their spaceship. I think they're basically the equivalent of like space like trash men.
Okay.
And they get, they're just doing their job, and they get this distress signal, and they're technically like obligated to I guess it's like space courtesy or whatever, but they're kind of obligated to like adhere to the rules and check out the distress signal. And they enter a ship, and weird shit happens. So, and what's really cool is that the ship itself is shaped like a giant rose, like made out of metal.
Okay.
So, again, without spoiling anything, the movie does this incredible job of blurring the lines between like what is like science and what might be supernatural, but it's vague enough to where like either explanation could work.
Okay.
So like if you really thought about it, some of the weird stuff that happens could be explained purely by science in some way. Or if you want to, you can think of it as supernatural. Personally, I guess maybe this is just my personality or how I like to see things. I like to think of the whole movie as being purely grounded, and everything that happens could be explained scientifically in some way. Like maybe certain things that happen have to do with the advanced technology. But if somebody saw the movie and wanted to think that all of it was all the weird stuff that happens were because of supernatural reasons, I think that's a valid way of looking at it as well.
Perfect Blue is kind of similar, where but it was like a kind of a psychological thriller, and you're kind of thinking like what's all like in her head and what's real.
Yeah, you're right. They're similar in that respect. So yeah, Magnetic Rose. It's technically it's part of a 3-part series called Memories, but I never watched the other 2 parts because Magnetic Rose was so good, and I'm like, I'm not gonna even bother with the other 2 parts because there's no way it can top this. I should probably watch the other 2, but like they're only tangentially connected by the theme of Memories, and they're not like, they have nothing to do with Magnetic Rose in terms of like characters or plot and everything like that. They're only like thematically connected.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, that is your assignment for the next episode, is to watch Magnetic Rose.
Yeah, so I'll watch it, and then next podcast I'll give my thoughts on it.
Yeah, we can discuss it. All right, that's pretty much it. That's an episode. Do you have any final words, man?
Yeah, so kind of have like the basic structure, like like the games we've been playing to start it off, the news, and then we pick three things of news each episode. I know it's like to do like a whole shit ton of news that's happening in the industry, but I feel like that gets a little stale, and it's just a lot of people just talk about the news, give like a very brief opinion on it, and don't really go in depth, which I've never been a huge fan of. This way we can kind of pick the 3 that's most interesting to us and then just kind of go in depth on it. I think it's just a better fit for a podcast overall. Yeah, and then obviously I think the podcast we're going to try to get better as we go along, kind of basically come up with like a structure that kind of works for us. And of course, discussion topics going to be different each episode. Maybe even some guests later. I think we should definitely have guests later.
Absolutely. I have a few people in mind. I feel the same. I think that we're just going to talk about mainly what we feel like talking about. I don't think we should feel obligated to talk about every single fucking news article that comes out. We're just going to talk about the things that interest us, and we're going to go in depth about them, and we're going to do what we think works. I wanted to thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, we may answer them in the next episode. I think that'll be an interesting segment to have as well, to answer any questions that you guys might have, and just keep them civil, nothing personal.
Yeah, that should be fun. And I guess I'm probably going to prepare for some of the hate for hating on Raiden Historia and Gantz maybe.
No, I think people generally that I've seen don't like Gantz, so I wouldn't worry about that.
The Raiden Historia is the big one, though.
Yeah, that one's probably going to get you a few of them.
It did on I did a review on the channel. I remember a lot of disagreements, but that was expected.
Yeah, that's just what happens when you put up any negative review. You're always going to have people that give you shit for it.
Yeah, interestingly, my Dragon Quest reviews have been like the worst. Dragon Quest fans, they don't like you shitting on their series. They really don't.
Yeah, I'm not surprised because those are old school fans you're fucking with.
Yeah.
You know, those are people who have been around for like fucking decades. So that those are people you definitely don't want to fuck with. All right, okay, I think that's it. Thanks again for joining me, Ultimate Floyd. I look forward to doing more episodes with you. Hopefully we can do this for a good long while. This is just going to be a bi-weekly podcast, but we're not going to strictly make it like every 2 weeks. It will be mostly whenever we have time. But, hopefully we can at least have a somewhat consistent schedule. But, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. See you next time, guys.
Later.